When introducing a legacy character, fans are often concerned, as a character they may truly love is being replaced by someone who will likely not be as good. But sometimes the legacy character will actually do some things better than their predecessor. Welcome to Top 10 Nerd. I'm Andrew Boyd, and because so many of you left comments praising my hot takes on Part 1 and begging for more of them, today we will be taking a look at another top 10 legacy characters better than the original. So let's dive in. Number 10. Laura Kinney's Wolverine. The original Wolverine is one of the most popular Marvel Comics characters, having won over the world with his grumpy, fuzzy Canadianness. But here's the thing, because he is so popular and written by so many people, he has a tendency to be kind of inconsistent. At his best, Logan is tough but with a heart of gold, being capable of extreme violence but struggling with the fact that he has the potential to be a feral monster. At his worst, he is written as a psycho who is constantly picking fights with his teammates and continuously talking to no one in particular about how tough he is. His daughter, a half-clone named Laura Kinney, aka X-23, has similar powers, but is less prone to alienating her teammates, being able to get close to people a lot easier than Logan. When Logan died, she took up the Wolverine mantle for a while and managed to be just as skilled and effective, while also showing a lot more emotional maturity than her predecessor. So, while I think Logan is the more interesting character, I think the claim that he's the best there is at what he does is up for debate. Oh, and for what it's worth, when the characters first met and fought, Laura outfought and outsmarted Logan by plugging his wounds with mud so that they couldn't heal over and he would bleed out. Number 9. Connor Kent's Superboy. In 1949, the Superboy series began being published, telling the stories of a young Clark Kent and how he fought crime as Superboy before eventually growing up to be Superman. It detailed his life growing up in Smallville, fighting villains, and teaming up with the time-traveling Legion of Superheroes and Crypto the Superdog. It was a fun, campy series, but other than the character's age, there wasn't really much difference between his Superboy adventures and his Superman ones at the time. A couple continuity shakeups later, we were introduced to a new Superboy, Connor Kent. When Superman was killed by the villain Doomsday, Project Cadmus created a clone of him using a combination of Superman and Lex Luthor's DNA. Connor had slightly different powers and a teenage snark that really set him apart from the Man of Steel. And watching him navigate his complicated lineage, his desire for acceptance from Supes, his time on the Teen Titans, and his growth as a character made him a lot more interesting to read about than a young Clark Kent. I also really like the period where Superman's son John Kent becomes Superboy, but it was unfortunately cut very short when he was aged up. Number 8. Terry McGinnis's Batman. In the Batman Beyond television show, we were shown a futuristic Gotham City where Bruce Wayne had been forced to retire due to his advanced age. A teenager named Terry McGinnis stumbled upon the Batcave and used Bruce's futuristic batsuit to avenge the death of his father, impressing Bruce so much that he was offered the mantle of Batman. Terry's Batman has a lot of advantages over the original Batman, being able to turn invisible and fly with rocket boots and having enhanced strength, just to name a few. Now, this comes with a huge asterisk, as the suit was designed and built by Wayne, and Terry doesn't have the same level of skill as the original Batman, which is why he's ranked relatively low on this list. But the point that I'm trying to make is that Terry's Batman has better tech in every conceivable way than every version of Bruce Wayne at his peak. Also, credit to Terry, he was able to get under the Joker's skin in a way that Bruce never would have thought to in the Return of the Joker film. Number 7. Scott Lang's Ant-Man. People have a tendency to complain about the fact that the Ant-Man movies chose to focus on Scott Lang's time as Ant-Man rather than Hank Pym's, which I don't really get, if I'm being honest. Don't get me wrong, Pym is a great character and is responsible for the creation of the tech that allows Ant-Man to shrink and grow and control ants. All that fun stuff. He first suited up as Ant-Man in 1962's Tales to Astonish number 35, but he gave up the persona and became Giant Man barely a year later in Tales to Astonish number 49. He's bounced between identities a lot, having mostly alternated between Giant Man and Yellowjacket jacket, but to my knowledge, he never became Ant-Man again. On the other hand, Scott Lang has been suiting up as Ant-Man since 1979, and in his time in the costume has fought and defeated villains like Kang the Conqueror and Doctor Doom. He has way more quality stories than Pym does just by virtue of having stuck with the identity longer. You could absolutely debate whether or not Hank Pym is a better superhero than Scott, but if you're talking about who the better Ant-Man is, it's hard not to pick Scott. Number 6. Kyle Rayner's Green Lantern. The original Green Lantern was Alan Scott, but the most well known is Hal Jordan. There are other Earth Green Lanterns such as Guy Gardner and John Stewart, who are both great characters who you could make the argument are better or more interesting than Hal, depending on your personal taste. But for this list, I gotta give it to Kyle Rayner. When Hal lost it and became the villain Parallax, he destroyed the entire Green Lantern Corps, and Kyle got the last ring, making him the only Green Lantern left. Kyle proved up to the task and managed to become a capable superhero and member of the Justice League. When he had to go up against Parallax, he managed to defeat Hal and save the planet. Later, when the planet was in danger again, he was the one who convinced Hal to redeem himself. Later, when the Corps was reformed, he was granted the title of Torchbearer for his efforts. He was a host for the Ion entity of Will, and was chosen by every ring on the emotional spectrum to be a member of their various corps, wielding all the rings at once. This led to him becoming the White Lantern, so while he isn't a lot of people's favorite Lantern, he has done more for the Corps than any of them. Number 5. Starman. The original Starman was Ted Knight, a wealthy scientist who created a device called the Gravity Rod, which allowed him to fly and shoot energy blasts and stuff like that. Personally, if my ability to fly depended on being able to hold a flashlight in my hand, I'd put a strap on it, kinda like a Wii controller, but maybe that's just me. Anyway, he was a hero in the Golden Age, first appearing in 1941 and being a member of the Justice Society. He had 2 sons, David and Jack, but he could be somewhat neglectful of them because of his focus on superheroics. When he retired, he passed the mantle down to his older son David, which was fine with Jack because he thought the whole thing was dumb. David was Starman for about a week before the son of the original Starman's archenemy, the Mist, shot him with a sniper rifle. At this point, Jack reluctantly took on the mantle. He redesigned the suit to be more casual and modern, and his father gave him a gravity staff to replace the rod. The story of someone reluctantly becoming a hero while trying to reconcile with an absent father is more interesting to me than anything Ted Knight got up to in the Golden Age. So I'm calling Jack the superior Starman, and if nothing else, he did better than David. Number 4. Nite Owl 2. Despite being introduced in the same comics at the same time, a couple of the characters in Alan Moore's Watchmen universe are legacy characters, such as the heroes going by Nite Owl. The original Nite Owl was a man named Hollis Mason who was a policeman in New York in the late 30s. He decided to become a vigilante and eventually joined the masked adventurer group the Minutemen. He was a good hand-to-hand fighter, but beyond that wasn't the most impressive hero. After he retired, a man named Dan Dryberg, who had inherited a large amount of money, wrote to him and asked for permission to take up the mantle. Dan was a genius inventor, having a variety of gadgets like night vision goggles, a more advanced suit, and his owl ship, Archie. He trained with Hollis to be just as good of a martial artist, and the two became good friends until Hollis's death. Considering how much more advanced Nite Owl 2 is in every sense of the word, it's hard not to consider him the superior crime fighter. Number 3. Amadeus Cho's Hulk. Amadeus Cho is a brilliant scientist not dissimilar to Bruce Banner, who is considered the 6th smartest man alive in the Marvel Universe. He worked alongside several heroes in the decade before he became Hulk, but Banner was the first he helped. That made it very fitting when he was forced to use special nanites to absorb the Hulk's powers. This turned him into a new Hulk. But unlike Banner, who suffers from severe DID, and as a result has several different and very dangerous angry Hulks inside of him, Cho was able to keep his Hulk side relatively under control, priding himself at being a better and smarter Hulk than Banner. Now, if I was an Avenger, I would feel a lot better with Cho on my team than the unpredictable Banner. So I really do think that Cho's Hulk is the better hero, due to him rarely losing control. But setting aside the logic of who would realistically be the better hero, who wants to read a Hulk comic where he doesn't lose control? Banner is by far the more interesting of the two characters, even if Cho is a better fit for teams like the Avengers. Number 2. Tim Drake's Robin. Several people have taken on the mantle of Robin the Boy Wonder over the years, with the the original being Dick Grayson. Dick operated as Robin for decades in the comics before he was finally allowed to grow up. In story, he and Batman grew apart and were having a lot of personality conflicts, so Robin quit and eventually became Nightwing. He was replaced by Jason Todd, who was a street kid Batman caught stealing the tires off the Batmobile. Jason became Robin but was never as skilled as Dick, and had a tendency to be overly aggressive and to clash with the Dark Knight, frequently disobeying orders and eventually being killed by the Joker. After this, a kid named Tim Drake realized that Batman in his grief was becoming more and more violent and reckless, and decided that Batman needed a Robin to help temper his aggression. Tim became Robin and took to the role flawlessly. Now that Tim has been replaced by Damian Wayne and has become his own hero, you could make the argument that he is not as skilled a solo hero as Dick's Nightwing or Jason's Red Hood, but as far as which of the Robins has worked the best with Batman, Tim stands above the rest, with even the original Dick Grayson having admitted that Tim was the best of the Robins. Plus, his Robin costume was a massive improvement on the classic no pants and pixie boots look both Dick and Jason had worn during their times as Robin. Number 1. Zatanna. As she is such a staple of the DC universe, albeit an extremely underrated staple, a lot of fans might not even realize that Zatanna the Magician is a legacy character. Her father, Giovanni Zatara, made his first appearance in Action Comics #1, the same issue that featured the first appearance of Superman. Like his daughter, he performs as a stage magician, but is an actual magic wielder who is able to cast spells by speaking his incantations backwards. He uses these abilities to fight crime and do the whole superhero thing. Zatanna took a similar path as her father, but was more popular with readers. Due to her father having been dead in the comics for several years and therefore rarely showing up, and her being much easier on the eyes, not many people seek out her father's adventures, instead choosing to focus on his progeny, one of the most popular legacy characters in comics. Any other legacy heroes you think did a certain element better than the original? Let us know in the comments below, and remember to like and subscribe for more Top 10 Nerd.